Jayna Murray did everything right, and that is what killed her. That is not a horror movie premise. That is a Friday night in Maryland in 2011. She left her car in the parking lot and went back inside to help a coworker get her wallet. And that was the last decision she ever made.
Jayna Murray, 30 years old, was a graduate student at Johns Hopkins University pursuing a Master of Business Administration degree. She had taken the job at Lululemon to meet other active people and attend seminars that would help her career. Brittany Norwood, on the other hand, was 29 years old. Fellow employees said there were never any issues between the two women. At the end of their shift, Jayna and Brittany checked each other's bags, standard store policy. And Jayna found something in Brittany's bag, a pair of stolen leggings.
They left the store at 9:45 p.m. 6 minutes later, Jayna called a store manager to report what she had found. The manager told her they'd deal with it in the morning. Jayna said, okay, and that should have been the end of the night. But then Brittany called. Brittany told Jayna she had accidentally left her wallet inside the store and needed to go back to get it. At 10:05 p.m., the two women went back inside. So she unlocked the door, and they went back in. And Jayna Murray never came back out. And when Jayna walked back through that door, Brittany was ready. According to the prosecution, the attack was savage and prolonged. A blood trail shows how Jayna tried to escape through a back door and couldn't make it. She had 107 defensive wounds on her body, the most the medical examiner had ever seen on a single victim in his career. She fought hard for a long time against someone who did not stop. Brittany used tools from the store's own supply kit, a merchandise peg, a rope, a hammer, a knife, a box cutter. She didn't bring anything with her. She used what was there. When it was over, the condition of her body was so devastating that her family could not have an open casket at her funeral. Now here is the part that takes this case from horrific to something else entirely. She didn't run. She didn't leave. She stayed in that store for another 90 minutes, and she took money from the cash registers to make it look like a robbery. She sliced open her own forehead. She cut a gash in Jayna's pants to suggest sexual assault. And then, this is the part that gets me. She found a pair of size 14 men's shoes, stepped into them, walked through the pool of Jayna's blood, and tracked footprints throughout the store to make it look like two large male attackers had been inside.
Then she tied her own hands and feet with zip ties, got into the bathroom, and waited for morning. She lay there, in the dark, for hours. When investigators arrived and Brittany was rushed to the hospital, she told them everything. Two men dressed entirely in black. Masks. Gloves. They followed the two women back inside, beat them, sexually assaulted them, killed Jayna, tied Brittany up, and left. She gave details, clothing descriptions, a sequence of events, the kind of specific, layered story that sounds like a traumatized person's real memory. Here is the thing about building a lie that complicated. You need every single piece to hold. And Detective Dmitry Ruvin was already pulling at threads. Detective Ruvin said it plainly.
The amount of trauma that Jayna suffered wasn't normal. He described a small voice in the back of his head telling him something wasn't right about the way Brittany described the attackers. They're racist, they're rapists, they're robbers, they're murderers. It's like the worst human being you could possibly describe. He also found it bizarre that these men used every tool inside the store rather than bringing their own weapons. That detail. Two men who supposedly came to rob a store showed up with no weapons of their own and improvised with whatever was on the shelves. Professional criminals don't do that. The medical examination didn't support the sexual assault claim. Blood spatter patterns throughout the store didn't match Brittany's account, and surveillance footage from neighboring businesses showed no masked men entering or leaving the store at any point that night. And then investigators found that Jayna Murray's car had been moved several blocks away from the store after the attack to a parking lot nearby.
By someone who was supposed to be tied up in a bathroom? When investigators confronted Brittany about Jayna's blood being found on the door handle, gear shift, and steering wheel of the car, Brittany had an answer ready. She said the two men forced her to move the car during the attack. When asked why she didn't use that moment to escape, she had no answer. After all of that planning, after the shoes, the zip ties, the staged robbery, the self-inflicted wounds, the constructed story with two invented attackers, she had no answer for why she didn't escape when she was allegedly alone outside with a car. She had told police she had never been inside Jayna's car, but her blood was on the steering wheel. Forensic evidence and DNA confirmed no intruders had ever entered the building. Zero physical evidence of any second person, male or female, beyond the two women who closed that store.
Brittany Norwood was arrested on March 18, 2011, 1 week after Jayna Murray died on the floor of that store. And here is the question everybody asks at this point. Why? Over a pair of leggings? At its surface, yes, Brittany Norwood killed Jayna Murray because Jayna caught her stealing and reported it. But look underneath that surface, because this wasn't the first time. It came out during the investigation that Brittany had a documented pattern of theft and dishonesty going back years. A former college teammate said Brittany had been her best friend, and then described a series of incidents where things went missing and stories didn't add up. The defense at trial argued Brittany simply lost it, that this was a crime of passion, not premeditation. The prosecution dismantled that in about 30 seconds.
The size 14 shoes, the staged robbery, the self-inflicted wounds, the zip ties she tied on herself, the moved car, the constructed two-attacker story with clothing descriptions and a specific timeline. You do not do all of that in a moment of passion. You do not spend 90 minutes staging a crime scene if you just snapped. Every single one of those decisions was made with a functioning, calculating brain. The prosecution argued premeditation, and the evidence backed them up. If Brittany could prove premeditation was absent, she faced second-degree murder. If the jury found she planned it, life without parole. Brittany Norwood was later convicted of first-degree murder. Her journey from supposed victim to convicted killer was complete. In January 2012, Judge Robert A. Greenberg sentenced Brittany Norwood to life in prison, with no possibility of parole.
Jayna Murray's family established an initiative in her name to continue the kind of work she cared about. Because that is what you do when the legal chapter closes, and the grief doesn't. You build something from it, so the name means more than the crime. Jayna Murray's family could not have an open casket. They buried a daughter they could not see one last time. And Bethesda went back to being Bethesda. The Apple store next door kept selling iPhones. The coffee shops on Bethesda Row kept filling up on Saturday mornings. The Lululemon eventually reopened. Life resumed the way life does, carrying the weight quietly, underneath everything.
Not for the numbers, because Jayna Murray deserves to be remembered accurately, as a person, not just a headline about a yoga store. Subscribe if you want more stories told like this. Straight, human, no filler. I'll see you in the next one.